Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers-Kamen, your host. For more than 13 years, I've been handcrafting these sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, I love spotlighting diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world in which to live. I invite you to listen up and change the way you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Alrighty then, let's dive in. This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are talking about building well-being with resilience, personal growth, and relationships. My guest today is Mark Nepo, who is always a pleasure to have on the show. This conversation originally took place in March of 2022, and I have to add that the subject matter is always relevant, particularly when we're going through hard times. And certainly our resilience is being challenged at this time. So I hope revisiting this conversation and its subject matter is of solace or food for thought. Mark Nepo is a poet and storyteller celebrated for his spiritual guidance, who writes and teaches about the journey of inner transformation and the life of relationships. Mark's books have been translated into over 20 languages, selling millions of copies worldwide. One of my personal favorites is the Book of Awakening, which received acclaim from Oprah Winfrey, who named it one of her ultimate favorite things. Mark holds a doctorate in English and taught at the University of Albany for 18 years. His work has received accolades in periodicals such as the New York Times, the Oprah magazine, but his work is timeless and his message super important. Let's get to it. Welcome back, Mark. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, it's great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. I think whatever you write is always timely because I feel like it's always born of the moment, right? What you're sharing with us. But in particular, as we step into this next phase of our humanity, and particularly after the pandemic and with all that's going on in the world, now more than ever, I think we need to pay attention to how we walk our path.
Yes, absolutely. I think, I really believe that each generation and each person, it's our turn. For us, it was the pandemic. For my parents' generation, it was World War II. For the in-between generation, the Vietnam War, other things, and whatever it might be, we are always faced with challenges. Are we going to choose love over fear? Yeah. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to discover one more time that we need each other and that we're more together than alone? And this is our turn.
I want to touch upon what you just said about choosing love over fear, because so many of us are in fear, right? You look at what's out in the media, what you see on social media, which I do my very best to limit, but sometimes it seeps in. And there is so much fear-based behavior going on, not so much in the younger kids. Like I have young adults and they're actually doing okay in that arena, but it's the older folks.
Well, I think that, fear, and I know a lot about fear because like everyone, I've experienced a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Especially, one of my great apprenticeships in fear was, over 35 years ago, but when I almost died from a rare form of lymphoma, and I was just terrified. And one of the things I learned about fear is fear is not to be obeyed, but to move through. Because whenever I've asked my fear, what should I do? My fear says, be more afraid. And, so I don't ask my fear. I, I try to comfort my fear and I ask my heart and my soul and I ask loved ones and I ask for help. But, when we obey our fear, then we start to look for only what's familiar. And then we
Hmm.
stop growing. And so, and we can see this playing out all over our society right now and through the pandemic. The more fearful we've gotten, the more, and when we're fearful, we look for what will confirm what we already know, as if that will protect us. And that's not education. You know, Growing is teach me what I don't know. You know something I don't. Thank God you're not me.
Yeah, exactly.
let,
Exactly.
let's compare notes.
Bring some other interest to the table here. Yeah, and I'm thinking of a particular incident that I had with a family member a few weeks ago who found a homeless person or came upon a homeless person in their neighborhood and was really frightened by this experience and needed this person in their mind, needed this person gone, and was making a lot of noise with their city, to have this situation taken care of. And I brought up with this person who shall remain nameless, like, what is so fearful about this human being?
hmm I think one of the things that happens to us when we get afraid is we push things away, and that only makes the fear greater. Because if we can lean in, chances are that homeless person was very afraid of quote normal people. and and because no one chooses to be homeless, obviously.
Yes, yes.
And and I remember this was a simple thing, but it taught me a lot. Was my mother, who's now gone, and but when I grew up on Long Island in outside of New York City, and she was a person, God bless her, who wasn't very comfortable in nature, so she was afraid of bugs and insects and everything. If a bug was in the house, everything had to stop, and we rolled up magazines, and so I never had anything against insects, but I kind of inherited this.
Yeah.
And I remember jogging in the summer, and I sat on a bench, in this was in Albany, New York, and all of a sudden a bee landed on the bench near my arm, and my first was like, "Uh-oh," and and maybe because I was exhausted from running, my first kind of fear response was swat it, but I thought, what an odd response. Like, I'm so much bigger than this little thing, and I have legs, I can move. So I did an experiment. I let the bee get a little closer. And as it got closer, I could see that its stinger was not extended, you
Uh-huh.
know? And so by allowing it to get close, what I feared to get closer, I had more information and I could actually see, oh, it's actually safer. So the more we push away, the more the fear gets because we don't have any more information. And if we can let what we fear get a little closer, we actually get more information. And then it's like, oh, you know what? I don't need to be afraid until it extends its stinger.
Yeah. I think that is a great illustration of working with our fear. Because, I mean, fear actually does have some constructive uses if we put it to work.
The proper, legitimate function of fear is to alert us to real danger. So again, here's a simple example. I mishandle something at the stove and I burn myself. So now, because I'm afraid, I say, you know what? I'm gonna make sure there's a foot between me and that stove every time I pass it.
Yeah.
So not only can I not use the stove because I'm not learning how to better use it, but I've made the distance great. So there's a legitimate ring of safety. And we, because we're human, we distort that, we exaggerate it and say, you know what, just to be safe, I'm going to add like a foot. But then inside, what do we do? Now we say that's the ring of safety, and that's not true. So now just replace the stove with that homeless person or love. I get burned by love. Now I say, well, forget that. I'm going to back up a foot or two. Maybe I'll even make it 3 feet, just to play safe. So what happens? Not only is that extra distance not necessary, I can't reach anyone because I've put myself so far away. So now not only am I afraid, but then I start telling myself, man, it's lonely in life
Yeah.
because I can't reach. So you see what, and we do, all of us do this. So one of and in the Buddhist tradition, there's a great uh, kind of practice or orientation as to how can we see things as they are. And that is at once simple and the most difficult thing on earth. So, our question for all of us, for anyone who's listening, if we want to reduce our fear, how can you right size your ring of fear to your legitimate ring of safety?
Ooh,
How,
how?
what can you do? Can you talk to a friend? Can you look more closely? Can you revisit your habitual fears and say, how far do I really need to be from that stove, from that person, from that unknown thing, from that homeless person, from the bee that's legitimate so that my fear doesn't increase the distance between me and life?
And it's interesting as you say this, and I'm thinking of this person, the walls come up, right? And keep us from the very thing we want, which is a fuller experience of the life that we're living.
Well, the challenge always, and again, walls have their purposes,
Yeah.
but whatever we wall out, we also wall in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make ourselves, and actually D.H. Lawrence has a poem called Self-Protection in which he asks the question, is the best self-protection hiding who we are or being who we are? So yeah, if we take risks, we'll be hurt. We'll things won't go right all the time. But if we don't, and this goes into a deeper conversation, that if we don't, we will not only isolate ourselves, we'll lose touch with the resources of life. So everyone alive needs to both survive and thrive. Now, to survive, we have to manage risks. Like you and
Yes.
I couldn't have this conversation if we were crossing a street. We'd have to look, otherwise we might get hit by a truck. That's managing risk. But inwardly, the only way we thrive and grow is by enhancing risk.
Yes.
So we have to become skilled at both in the proper field.
Which requires a clarity of perspective, which, if we're managed by fear or ruled by fear, it's really hard to do.
And this is where we can reach out to each other. So, if I'm struggling with something I can't see clearly, I can call you up as my dear friend. I'd say, I'm feeling really afraid of this, and I'm not sure if I've got a clear picture of this. Could you help look at this with me?
Mm. This is a beautiful thing. And yet it's very hard for many people to do because it involves the V word,
Yeah. Well, the word that there is no transformation without vulnerability.
Yeah.
In the Tao, the classic Tao, there's a verse that Lao Tzu offers where he says, "Everything hard and brittle breaks. Be like water."
Yeah. I want to do a sound effect. with that shh. We should take a break. That's probably a good point. To learn more about Mark Nepo and his really amazing work, please visit marknepo.com. On Twitter, you can find him at Mark Nepo, and the same goes for Facebook and Instagram. We're talking about Mark's newest book, The Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. Here comes the pause, and we'll be right back. Hang on just a second here. Before we take that pause, I want to remind everyone about the pleasure of looking good and having good hair days. From volume and shine to deeply hydrating, Way helps you find your way to good hair days every single day. I use a blend of several Way product combinations in rotation to tame my superfine, wavy, and frizzy postmenopausal hair to look and feel its best. Way offers a complete hair care solution that promotes fuller looking, healthier feeling, and happier hair no matter your type. Whether you're fine, medium, or thick, Way has got you covered with a wide variety of products that get the job done, like fine hair shampoo and conditioner will turn up the volume and give your locks a luxurious lift. Way's conditioning hair mask for fine to medium and thick hair types instantly restores hydration, fights fids, and strengthens strands. My favorite Way product is their leave-in conditioner that makes my hair feel soft, silky smooth, and smelling like I'm on vacation. I'm also a big fan of the multitasking hair oil that smooths frizz and seals split ends for a healthy, shiny finish. Not sure what your hair type is? Take Way's hair quiz to find out. Wash your way to healthier hair and get a hair routine that's made just for you by Way. Go to THEOUAI.com and use promo code HH for 15% off any product. That's THEOUAI.com, code HH. Here comes that pause. We'll be right back. Each day we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstance. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, seek support because good psychological health is vital in the achievement of a happy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial educational resources to boost emotional and social intelligence. Like what you hear on Harvesting Happiness? Sharing is caring. Pay it forward by spreading the word to your community and through social media. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. And we're back continuing the conversation with Mark Nepo. We're talking about building well-being, resilience, personal growth, and relationships. Let's get back to it. So, Mark, we were talking a little bit about fear and expanding our circle to allow more of what we want in and learn to dance with our fears, perhaps, and question them. Let's go back to the topic of love, because I once had a professor, and I say this often on the show. The professor said to me, healing is the application of love to the places that hurt.
Ah, yeah. Well, I think that, and again, I go back to my cancer journey so many years ago. I was so blessed to be held and cared for by so many people, including people I didn't know. And one of the great gifts of all that is that, I received everything.
Yeah.
I didn't have any preferences. I didn't have any, well, let's see, should I accept this? I was raised Jewish, and through this journey, I became, which affected all of my work, a student of all paths. I have a great tie to the Jewish heritage, but I was blessed to have people from every walk of life, including atheists and scientists and Native Americans and Sufi practitioners, kindly offer me some blessing or help. So when I tumbled back into life, still blessed to be here, I was not, and am still not all these years later. I can't tell you what worked and what didn't. And I was challenged to believe in everything. And therefore, all my work, all my books, all my teaching, the things I explore in circle with others, I believe in a common, unnameable center to all paths and the unique gifts of each. So I've come to, and that's informed all my work. And, I feel like the poet in me is the part of me that sees, and the philosopher in me tries to make sense of what I see. But it's the cancer survivor in me that says, if we can't make use of it, forget it.
How beautifully put. And isn't that the essence of this life, right? If we can't make good use of our experiences and make good use of ourselves in relationship to the world.
This is like we learn to open our eyes in order to see. If you don't see, once you open your eyes, what's the point of having eyes? And we learn to open our heart through vulnerability, through overcoming fear, through reaching for each other in order to love. And if we don't love and reach once our heart is open, what's the point of having a heart? Often our personal growth involves seeing and feeling. But if we don't then move into the life of relationship, then what's the point? And we need both. There was a great Ramana Maharshi, the great Hindu sage, had this wonderful, saying. He said, trying to save the world before liberating yourself is like carpeting the earth rather than wearing sandals.
That is pretty great.
Isn't that great? And when you look at this, in Dante's Divine Comedy, in Purgatory, he describes there is a ring of purgatory for people who do good poorly.
Ooh.
They're not in hell because they're doing good, but they're not in paradise because they're doing good poorly. And if we don't, so what does this mean when we take these things, what Ramana Maharshi said and what Dante said? Well, it means that the way I understand it, if I am not aware, if I don't do my own inner work, I will very naturally, like all human beings, I may not give you what you need. I may give you what I might need if I were in your place.
Mm.
So let me give you an example of that. A very warm, touching example. And years ago, in a former life, in a previous marriage, my former father-in-law, he's gone now. He was a wonderful old farmer from upstate New York. And when his sister was dying, and he was a very quiet, loving, giving man, but very quiet, hardly, didn't speak much. Well, all of a sudden, when his sister was in the hospital, he was very vocal. He was insistent that she not be left alone. We had to all make sure that she was not left alone all through the night. And I had this touching awareness. I thought, oh, you just told me what you want when it's your turn.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked her sister. She might have said, God, leave me alone.
Yeah, I need a minute here.
But he, without realizing it, and so, I convert. So it made me, the more I reflect on that, one of the things about relationship is without self-awareness, without self-truth, I might, intending well, give you what I would need if I were you, and never ask you what you need.
And isn't that oftentimes the dilemma in relationship, right? We tend to love the other the way we want to be loved without really understanding how the other wishes to receive it.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important, in to ask, in doing one of my other books on the history of community, which is called More Together Than Alone, I stumbled on this beautiful, beautiful practice, which is done still today by Native American elder councils. And they always meet in circle, not just because of equity, there's no head to the circle, but they meet in circle so that everyone has a direct view of the center. And I love that because the assumption in that is no one view is enough. We need everybody's view to understand or grasp whatever we put in the center. So in this instance, what we're talking about, say, you know, all of a sudden we're friends and your heart is broken. And I know what it's like to have a broken heart, and I want to be there for you. And that's what's in the center. But in my, as we've been saying, in meaning well, I might be there for you, but say, boy, I know just what you're going through. Well, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I can tell you what heartbreak looks like from my side of the circle, but then I need to say to you, what's it look like from your side of the circle of life?
Yeah.
Tell me what this is like for you. And then when we combine both of our experiences and then other people on the circle, then we start to grow the meaning of whatever is in the middle of the circle.
And what you just described is also full presence, which in today's society, because our attention spans are pulled in so many different directions, that too is a challenge, to gift someone full presence.
We often take for granted and don't realize that how powerful our full presence is. And because we meaning well, we want to help, we want to problem solve, but often, and of course I've done this, I have to watch myself too. But if I jump in too quickly, I don't give you the space to discover what you didn't know you know.
Yeah.
Because feeling and thinking out loud for a spirit is what sketching is for an artist.
That's huge, actually. As you say that, I'm like, yeah, that's it. Right? That's the creative process.
And so we bear, Cicero, the Roman orator, he said, a friend is a second self. And of course, I didn't talk to Cicero. I don't know what he meant, but why I quote that is what it means to me is just what we're talking about, that we can be there for each other. And this is the heart at the root of the word compassion, means to be with.
Yeah.
To be with. Because, if you fall down, I can help you up. If you're thirsty, I can bring you water. But if your heart is broken and your soul is thirsty, I can be with you. That's all.
Which is the everything.
Which is everything.
Right? It's the everything
that's
to
the
be
heart
with.
Of relationship. Yeah.
And that's that love part of it, the potent salve of love that, and we're not talking about romantic love. We're talking about really the essence of what it means to be with each other.
Well, and humbly, one of my, which is just a stanza, one of my smaller poems goes like this. It goes, the mystery is that whoever shows up when we dare to give has exactly what we need hidden in their trouble.
Humbly, fully, lovingly, appreciatively. Wow. Mark Nepo, The Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. To learn more, please visit marknepo.com, and you can find Mark on all social channels at Mark Nepo. Mark, anytime, come back. There's always room around the circle and in it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Great to be with you. Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Mark Nepo, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to take a deeper dive into sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. Keep harvesting your own happiness anytime, anywhere from the comfort of wherever you are. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by me, Lisa Cypers-Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the awesome team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.